There's a baffling yet commonly held sentiment that the horror genre somehow can't be fertile ground for great acting, as though the heightened nature of the genre prevents actors from finding emotional truth in their roles. But recent years have surely rubbished that daft myth, given the avalanche of genuinely Oscar-worthy performances we've seen in the horror genre. More broadly, horror has also given many actors the floor to deliver the best performance of their entire careers. And over the last year or so, that is absolutely true of the following performers. I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 actors who just gave their best performances in a horror movie. Number 10, Theo James, the Monkey. Theo James has enjoyed a major career uptick in recent years thanks to his acclaimed performances on TV shows The White Lotus and The Gentleman. But he recently turned in his finest work to date in Osgood Perkins' wild black comedy, The Monkey. Beyond delivering a pretty damn impeccable American accent, James had to pull double duty here as twin brothers Hal and Bill Shelburne, and did a superb job of making his dual roles feel totally distinct. His droll voiceover narration as Hal brings a dry wit to the table that so perfectly complements the increasingly unhinged death scenes throughout. And seeing the actor riff off himself in the later scenes featuring Hal and Bill together is a balmy delight. Fresh off the success of last year's Longlegs, Perkins reaffirms his clear penchant for turning high-concept horror fare into an unexpected acting showcase for his lead cast members. James's superb work in The Monkey confirms that he's on a career high roll right now, and hopefully it won't be letting up anytime soon. Number 9, Heather Graham, Suitable Flesh. Heather Graham is a rock-solid actress, though certainly not one with a bevy of standout performances to her name. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And while Graham's star profile had faded considerably by the 2010s, she rebounded totally out of nowhere by starring in the 2023 horror film Suitable Flesh from the great Joe Lynch. Graham gives an impressively go-for-broke performance as Dr. Elizabeth Darby, a psychiatrist who ends up ensnared in a mind-bending body-swapping ritual. Given that other characters swap into Elizabeth's body throughout the film, Graham is tasked with delivering a wild, multifaceted, even quite literally schizophrenic performance. These swaps requiring Graham to switch acting gears at a moment's notice. And it's a sure understatement to say that she merely rises to the occasion. This is the most daring and provocative work of Graham's entire career, proving the full extent of her acting chops and making it abundantly clear what she's capable of doing with a suitably unhinged script. More of this, please. We'd like more of this. Number 8, Hugh Grant, Heretic. Hugh Grant's career has enjoyed something of a resurgence in recent years as he's pivoted towards more challenging and unexpected roles, the peak of which is surely Heretic. Grant took his characteristic charms and inverted them to portray the sadistic Mr. Reed, a man with a superficially harmless demeanour who is in fact a psychopath with a penchant for kidnap and torture. It's the furthest thing imaginable from Grant's 90s heyday as a rom-com megastar, and courtesy of Scott Beck and Brian Wood's incisive script, gives Grant the gift of his most complex, fascinating and terrifying character to date. Grant tears through the loquacious script with a glee that suggests he's been waiting years, even decades, for an opportunity like this one, in turn creating one of 2024's most unforgettable horror movie monsters, no matter that Mr. Reed is a mere flesh and blood human. Hell, Grant's performance was even acclaimed enough to land him a Best Actor nomination at the Golden Globes, no matter awards bodies' well-noted genre bias against horror. Number 7, Brandy Norwood, The Front Room. A24's psychological horror film The Front Room may have scored wildly mixed reviews from critics, but even those who loathed it generally had positive things to say about the two central performances from Brandy Norwood and Catherine Hunter. And while Hunter's ludicrously OTT turn as the mother-in-law from hell doesn't quite rank among her strongest screen work, this is definitely the finest showing yet for Brandy. Granted, Brandy is best known for her career as a singer-songwriter, and her filmography has been sporadic at best outside of a memorable role in 1998's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. but the front room nevertheless serves as a firm reminder of her acting talents, portraying the film's protagonist Belinda, a pregnant woman who quickly comes to blows with her aforementioned intrusive mother-in-law. If Hunter's performance delivers most of the film's absurd black comedy in spades, Brandy is meanwhile the straight-laced ballast, ensuring the film never gives itself over entirely to farce. Again, it's a divisive movie, though for anyone excited to finally see Brandy back in the horror genre, this was the sharpest, most evocative work of her intermittent acting career. Number 6. Lily Rose Depp, Nosferatu. Many expressed initial disappointment when Lily Rose Depp replaced Anya Taylor-Joy as female lead Ellen Hutter in Nosferatu, seeing the Idol star Depp as a surefire downgrade from director Robert Eggers' regular collaborator Taylor-Joy. But Depp absolutely proved her haters and doubters wrong, giving a sublime, arguably Oscar-worthy performance as a fiercely reimagined version of Ellen, who has considerably greater personal agency than in other prior versions of the story. It would be an enormously demanding, even grueling part for any actress to undertake, but Depp dives headlong into Eggers' madcap vision, giving an at times excruciating physical performance which so perfectly encapsulates both Ellen's torment and her ultimate physical power over Count Orlok. Depp's career may admittedly not be jam-packed with quality roles to date, though given the basically unimpeachable quality of her work here, it's safe to say she should start getting some seriously juicy offers from this point on. Number 5. Justice Smith, I Saw the TV Glow. Until last year, Justice Smith's career had never quite afforded him that one role which allowed him to break out. But that all changed with Jane Schumbrun's stunning horror drama I Saw the TV Glow. The role of protagonist Owen was a hugely challenging one, given that Smith is tasked with portraying a high schooler for most of the movie, despite being close to 30 years old at the time of shooting. It sounds silly, yet the casting choice was clearly an intentional one, serving as both a nod to the overaged casting tendencies of 90s teen drama shows, and the fact that Owen himself is unsure of his own personal identity throughout the film. Moreover, Smith gives a devastatingly raw, vulnerable performance as Owen, offering up a depiction of trauma that, despite the film's surreal inclinations, feels distressingly real, solidified by an unforgettable outburst sequence at the very end. Smith's efforts were rightly recognized by the Independent Spirit Awards, who nominated him for Best Lead Performance. Number 4. Hunter Schafer, Cuckoo. Justice Smith wasn't the only actor on this list to be honoured by the Independent Spirit Awards. Hunter Schafer was also nominated alongside Smith for her hypnotic, transfixing work in Cuckoo. The Euphoria star may just be starting her career, though as this film's troubled protagonist Gretchen gives a performance that she'll have to work hard to outdo. Schafer lends enormous dimension to Gretchen, venturing from familiar sullen teenager in earlier scenes to someone more complex and uniquely anguished as the increasingly deranged story lurches on. Schafer leads the needle here, surrendering Gretchen's vulnerability but also ensuring that she's a tough, resourceful final girl the audience can easily root for. Given that director Tilman Singer's film has its polarizing moments and it's categorically a not-for-everyone horror flick, Schafer basically helps keep everything in check. Even if you're mixed on the movie as a whole, it's tough to argue with the studied tenacity of Schafer's work. Number 3. Naomi Scott, Smile 2. Were there any justice in the world, Naomi Scott would have been a serious part of the Best Actress Oscar conversation for her outstanding performance in Smile 2. But alas, Parker Finn's electric horror sequel was likely a few steps too silly for the Academy in its more open-minded current era. All the same, Scott gives a basically flawless performance as embattled pop star Sky Riley, both proving fully persuasive as a Taylor Swift-esque pop icon and immersing herself fully in the physically and mentally demanding role. Given that most of Scott's screen time sees her protagonist being pushed to the psychological brink by a demonic entity, she doesn't get much downtime to relax, instead commanding the screen with her believably traumatized performance. Scott has proven herself a talented performer prior to this, being the easy standout in Disney's live-action Aladdin remake for one. But Smile 2 gave her the floor to deliver one of the most impressively fearless, committed performances from any film, horror or not, in recent years. Number 2. Sophie Thatcher, Companion. Sophie Thatcher's career may still be in its fair infancy, but she's been an intriguing presence ever since her star-making appearance in hit series Yellow Jackets, and reaches an early career peak with her new film Companion. Thatcher's performance is a tricky juggling act, which she nevertheless makes look effortless, portraying a character who, spoiler warning for anyone who didn't watch the trailer, is a robot, but initially unaware of this fact. And so Thatcher has to find the subtle sweet spot of portraying a character who appears human, but is just uncanny enough to also be believable as synthetic, while sidestepping the most obvious robot acting cliches. Thatcher's facial expressions alone make this a richly compelling performance, offering a window into the mind of an entity which comes to reckon with the fact that it isn't human. Even though Thatcher is clearly only getting started as an actress, she's already set a high benchmark for herself, and between this and her strong recent work in Heretic, has carved out a spot as an on-the-rise scream queen. Number 1. Demi Moore, The Substance. And finally, though Demi Moore didn't win the Best Actress Oscar for her mesmerizing performance in The Substance, the fact that a body horror movie scored an acting nomination at the Oscars at all basically feels like a win. Moore is one of Hollywood's most recognizable movie stars, with a high-profile career spanning more than 4 decades. And yet, it's not unfair to say that truly brilliant performances have eluded her for most of her career. More a result of the material than her talent. But The Substance's Elizabeth Sparkle was the perfect part for Moore. The parallels between Sparkle's desperation to regain her youth and Moore's own struggles to remain relevant in Hollywood speak for themselves. This is a full-throated performance that shows a level of commitment few likely expected of Moore, especially at this point in her career. Not merely going to tricky psychological places, but fully immersing herself in the film's ultimately grotesque makeup process. It's an astonishing, career-defining performance, and if Moore never manages to surpass this work, it's one hell of a high peak to rest on, don't you think?